Hey everybody, welcome back to This Old Trike. It is Independence Day. Happy Independence Day to you and yours. I hope you've had a wonderful weekend. And I'm just out here in the barn hanging out with my Hondas. But I took the opportunity to wheel out a few, as my gimbal goes crooked, I don't even care. But let me show you what I've got for you today. We are sharing with you today the entire 1985 ATC lineup. This was the year Honda had the most variety of three-wheelers. There's 11 different models they offered this year. Only 10 were available in the US. I don't know what was necessarily available in other countries, but I can tell you one of these was never sold in the US, and if you follow the channel, you probably know which one I'm talking about. If you don't follow the channel, I don't know why. You gotta make sure you like and subscribe, because you don't want to miss out on this sort of top-notch, top-shelf ATC content. Man, they just look neat. So, like I said, most models offered this year. Let's get into the nitty-gritty and let you know what they are and tell you a little bit about each one. I'll make some stuff up, but we'll start with the very cool ATC 70. So 1985, this is the last year of the ATC 70. You know, this was made 1973, 1974. They took a break. They picked it up in 78 with the second gen, 78, 79. 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, I can count. And then in 86, they went to the TRX. They made the TRX for 2 years. Last year for that was 1987, but this is probably one of the most mass-produced years. It seems like, you know, every ATC 70 you see, every other one is an 85. It's the last one produced, so maybe, you know, that's why more have survived, but that's not always the case. Like usually the last year, like the 85 110, but let's talk about like 350X's down on the end. 86, they made less than the 85. 86 250Rs, they made less than the 85. You know, 87 Big Reds, they made less than 87 than they did in 86, and they made less than 86 than they did in 85. But it seems like maybe the ATC 70 is the one that is not quite the same. This little unit I picked up from Trike Fest a couple years ago. That is not the tank that came on it. The tank that came on it was perfect in appearance on the outside, but has rust on the inside that I have not yet addressed. But I will eventually. This thing is all original, outside of not having the original tank. Original Atsu SP Whammy-Lass tires. Original seat, original decal. I believe on this side the seat has a little imperfection. Had that in the dining room for a while. And then we have the 1985 ATC 110, the last year of the 110. When did they make these? 1979, 80, 81, 82 was first gen. And in 83, they came out with second gen, which visually looks like this. There are differences. We have not yet covered all the differences in the 110s. Forgive me for that. I'm going to get there. But you'll see this one has Honda line front rack, Honda line rear rack. And if you look, if you do a little detective work, you'll see chrome poking through there. That was originally a chrome rear rack. It's missing the centerpiece there. But maybe the chrome was not nice and somebody painted over it, but I'd like to see if that's the case. These are aftermarket stump guards. You know, I really don't think you're going to be hammering the woods on your 110. That tag doesn't say anything anymore, but that silvery tag tells me that that's a CMP the Cambridge Metals and Plastics Company stump guard. This has PV 301s on it. These wouldn't be the correct tires for this. Those are 250 SX tires and in really good shape. Maybe I'll do some tire swaps at some point in the future and put the Oats Pro-Ams. I don't like to say it that way, but you guys like it when I mispronounce it. Maybe I'll do some tire swaps, make this more original, and then I can use those on one of my 250 SXs that don't have the correct tires. Speaking of incorrect tires, look at this. This is my 1985 110. It's a 110. 1985 125M, excuse me. It says it right there on the fenders. Got this from my buddy Derek, who you've seen in many videos of mine. This also has Honda line rear rack on it. This has the little nubs on the back that hang down. You can put your bungee cords around. This one doesn't. That's interesting. Was that because this one's chrome? I don't know. That's something I don't know. This does not have the correct tires on it, but they hold air, so that's a plus. 110s are pull start, 125Ms are electric start. The 1985 125M is the last year of the first gen, which consists of 1984 and 1985. After this, it goes to an upright motor. So this is more of a lay down design, as is the 110, as are the 70s. In 1986, this gets a upright cylinder like the 200S gets. Nice unit, electric start. That's what these had. So they've got a battery under the seat where the 110 doesn't. And if we take a look from behind, you'll see the battery's behind the taillight and the exhaust is outside the frame. But on the 110s, there's no battery to hinder running the exhaust inside the frame. So this has a tow hitch on it. That does not look, man, it doesn't look Honda line. I don't think that is. It's similar in design to a Honda line tow hitch, but I don't believe that is. Look at the 70. I know we're going back, but still got the plating on the axle. A little bit of rash right here. So somebody's been stunting it up. Yeah, this, I noticed the decal is peeling a little bit. My kids were wiping this down for me. I'll try to get behind that with a little adhesive to get it to lay down. But that decal is so nice, and it's, yeah, except for that area, it's nice enough to try to preserve it instead of just putting a new one on it. Oh, nothing special in there. No fistful of hundreds. These are not the correct straps. These would take the same straps as I believe my 200ES does, and I know I just bought those new. They weren't available for a while. But this is not the correct strap. So, we've covered the first three small machines with the horizontal motors. Let's get into the vertical motors with the 200S. We'll walk around. Start from the front. If you watched one of my last videos with Tim Keister, our interview between two trikes, kicking off a new series. Hope to do a bunch more of those, but he is a big fan of the 200S. This is the not the last year. They continued on to make the 200S in '86. Actually, in that interview, I got to correct him. He said in '86 that was the last hardtail, but it wasn't, because they still made an '87 125M, which was a hardtail. But we're not going to fault him for that. But this machine, not the correct tires. It's had a fun life, but it checks all the boxes in a sense for crack-free plastic. This thing I mentioned in my other video, I really need to take that off. It's more embarrassing than anything. It has a lot of potential to be cleaned up, and Actually, I just picked up another 85 200S fully suspended at Trike Fest. So I'm going to do a video on that all by itself, just talking about how neat that is and what makes that special. But this thing's had the seat recovered. You know, it had a rack on it that wasn't correct when I got it, so there's this sort of stuff going on where the rack rubbed, but that can be buffed out with time. Elbow grease, original tank, holding gas, not rusted up on the inside. So, you know, this is your hardtail, you know, kids lineup, we'll say. Well, Tim would say 200Ss are made for men. So
Honda built a 185S, and they said this is a very, very good trike for children and women. Let's build one for the men. And so they built the 200S, right. And the rest is really history. I mean,
men who still want to act like kids, maybe. I don't know. I'm getting off topic, but this is, as you will recall from one of the videos this winter, this is Lance. We had this guy brought home by my buddy Mike. This is one of the nicest examples of an 85 200X that I've ever seen. I am super pleased to own it. My daughter and I yesterday drained the gas out of the tank. We noticed, and this is important, she checked the oil. She showed me the dipstick, and it was wet all the way up, and it was dripping off a lot more easily. It was more viscous than you would expect to see. And so I smelled the dipstick, and it smelled gassy. Gas had gotten past the carburetor into the motor, into the crankcase. So we drained the oil, we put fresh oil in it, we put fresh gas in it, and we heard it run for the first time. I put a new air filter on it because the old air filter, new OEM, you can still get them. The old air filter wanted to just fall apart in your hand, so I didn't want that being sucked in. Look at this guy, I thought I smelled gas. He's peeing on the pavement. That little bugger. I didn't see it. All right, act like you didn't see that, guys. Right on my fresh pavement. Anywho, the gas is shut off on this machine because it would do the same thing. It needs to be pulled off and rebuilt. It idles, it runs, but the gaskets are, and the O-rings are shot pretty much. But this is the last year, 1985 is the last year of the first gen 200X. Of the first gen 200Xs, I think this one looks the best with the blue seat, blue fork boots, you know, the 85 style wing, which is different than the 86 style wing, but I think this was the best year of the first gens. After this, they went to second gen 86, 87. This one has a Bassani exhaust on it, rare Bassani. And I got to hear it for the first time yesterday, like I said, and it sounded good. It's not loud and cracky and obnoxious like a DG or a RCM. It's, I'd say it's even more mild than a Super Trap. But yeah, so let's recap. What did we cover so far? ATC 70, ATC 110, ATC 125M, ATC 200S, ATC 200X. Got a lot of 200s this year. And not disappointing us is the 200M. It is disappointing me. I just saw a drip come out of the back. 200M. So 2-year only machine. This is the last year of the 200M. I'm not quite sure why this machine even exists, honestly. It's a chain drive. All right, so if we're looking at the Big Red series, this is not a Big Red. In 83, Big Reds go from chain drive to shaft drive, 200 ES. Like that's a 200 ES, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But so they continue on the chain drive platform. This is basically the platform of a 82, 83 Big Red, but there's no high-low range. The fender is cut like this one is for the high-low reverse sub-transmission. So these fenders aren't like the 82, 83 Big Reds. So they're mixing and matching parts between the two. It's got a different fork setup. Like you notice, the forks up top are narrow. They go in right behind the headlight, but out here they're outside the headlight. But it's the same headlight. Why do that? That fork design is arguably better than this fork design. Because you got your lowers go into your uppers here. Where on this, I know I'm doing now a comparison. Where that fork goes down and turns into chrome and goes down inside there, and there's like a strut set up that always fails, and everybody writes me and says, where can I get kits to rebuild my front forks on my 84 200 ES? And I hate to tell them you can't do it. At least I don't know how to do it. Anyway, so these machines are oddballs. They didn't come with rear racks. Racks were an option. You could get a rear rack, you could get a front rack. Tim Keister likes them with the front rack, not the rear rack. I am of the opinion that they look dumb without a rear rack. I don't know. This whole design kind of confuses me. These have the Honda line headlight grill option. This actually had a speedo on it. You can see the drive gear down there. This was a speedo accessory. The cable came up through up to the bracket that would have held it. You can't even tell that it had it at one point. Maybe that's some rub. But you could get front and rear rack, a headlight guard, speedo on this. You could get a toolbox. Pretty much the same stuff you could get for your 200 ES. Now, if you haven't watched any of my videos, you might be looking at this thing going, what is going on? I don't understand. Why would this weird guy with a voice that puts me to sleep at night, why would he have put 85 decals on his 1984 200 ES Big Red? And that is because this is not a 1984 ATC 200 ES Big Red. This is a 1985 200 ES Big Red imported from England. Now anybody can have one of these made. Don't believe this. Believe this. This is the plaque. That's got the VIN. It's got the F on it. See that F right there? That's 85. These aren't on machines that are made in the US. Those are on machines from other countries, like the reflectors. This was originally sold in England. And go back and watch a couple videos ago. You'll see the series on how I brought it over here and restored it and kind of unveiled it at Trike Fest. So this is my 1985 200 ES Big Red. Only thing I could think is that they're going from the 84 200 ES. They're going to introduce the 85 250 ES in the United States. They've got manufacturing facility or facilities that have all these components that were being used on 84 near the assembly line. So they made a few of these and sold them in their non-primary markets. What do I mean by that? Not the US. I think that was their primary market. So these are oddballs, and I'm super happy to have it. I put a speedo on it during the restoration. I put the headlight guard on it. I know I've got some rubber steps I want to find and put on it. At some point I want to find a basket. If you have a nice condition basket and you'd like to sell it to me, please let me know. You can find me on Facebook, Preston Fraser. Here's my account. You can find me on Instagram, This Old Trike. Here's my account. DM me, PM me. I don't like to give my phone number out on the YouTubes, but you can find me, and maybe we can make a deal. But if you lived in the US, this is what your grandfather had. This is what you think of when you think of a Big Red, most likely. This was it. This was like let me back up. In 84, the 200 ES, that's the most mass-produced Honda three-wheeler of all. And I say that with a grain of salt because the master list, which I'll put over here in the margins, the master list that we all kind of quote has flaws in it, has omissions in it. So, we can't take that as gospel. But There's probably some truth to the fact that the 84 200 ES was the most mass-produced, but second to that, this is the most mass-produced Big Red. So this is probably what you're used to seeing. There's that picture of Andre the Giant riding a 85 Big Red. This is iconic. This was a tremendous upgrade for Honda, and it happened in 85. A lot of advancements happened in 85. And these are bulletproof. Options for the 250 ES, you could get the Speedo, you could get the box, you could get the basket, you could get the mud flaps if you'd like to make your machine, you know, look all clowned up. You could get the XA 601 tires, the puncture resistant tires. What else were options? The Spotlight, you know, everybody, those are rare air. I've never had a Spotlight. I've never had a chance to even buy one. That's how rare those are. What am I forgetting? I don't know. But this thing's a pretty nice cream puff. I mean, look at this. Look at this. You know, these are usually, it's got a little touch where it's starting to fail there, but these are all cracked up and dirt gets in there. You know, this is what you're used to seeing with these. But those are like gold colored. They've turned to gold. This is a boomerang bike for me. I own this thing twice. I got this in the infamous New Jersey deal I talk about. Held it for a while. It had a crack in the rear fender right there, kind of where the seat latch meets the rear fender. There was a crack. I ended up trading it to my buddy Pat, plus cash, for a 86 125M that I just had to have. It was beautiful. And he took it down a little bit, found a replacement fender. He basically found a machine that had everything nice that this thing had wrong, and he did a bunch of swaps and made this thing the cleanest machine he could. He sold it to my buddy Toby, and I bought it back right at the beginning of 2020. And at that time, it was the most expensive Big Red that I'd bought. And right now, I think I've got more money into that Big Red than any other Big Red, but I haven't started working on my 88 yet, and I have a feeling that's going to take that prize. But so let's recap real quick. ATC 70, ATC 110, ATC 125M, ATC 200S, ATC 200X, ATC 200M, ATC 200ES, ATC 250ES. Next in line in the 250 series is the 250SX, the mullet of the ATC world. Party up front, no. Business up front, party in the rear, whatever the saying is. These are great all-around machines. This is the first year for this model machine. They made this 3 years. Actually, I would say this is my least favorite year. The all red is nice, but I like the white tank of the 86 and the 87. I like the 86 more, but a lot of interchangeable parts with the 86, 87 years. This is the only year for the red headlight shell. That headlight lens is the same as that headlight lens. So if you need, for instance, a 250R headlight lens and you find a 250SX for sale, you can swap and interchange those. I'm getting ahead of myself. The 250SX motor is essentially the same as the 250ES motor. One is silver, one is black. The gearing is slightly different. I have looked it up. I've pasted it in different places. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but this will go faster. So this has 22-inch tires. This comes with 25-inch tires. Both are great utility machines. Racks were optional on the 250SX. You had to request those. You could get a front rack, rear rack, similar options. Speedo. Hitch, tow hitch was an option on the SX. But you could get all your work done with this, and then you could go pop wheelies and head over to the bonfire and party with your friends. I mean, you can do that with a Big Red. That's what Trike Fest is really all about. But this one's a little more sporty. Great machines, though. Now, we've talked about the 200X over there, but now we're going to talk about the real sport machines, the men's sports machines. The first year of the liquid-cooled ATC 250R happened in 1985. This was head and shoulders above the 84 model which was air cooled. The suspension is totally different. The chassis is totally different. This is the machine you would get if you wanted to race. And it would take you places that you probably never thought you'd go, sometimes to the hospital. All of these would, I suppose. But anyway, I don't want to belabor each one, details on each, but this was the first year of the second gen. 86 is the last year that they made and sold these. If you want to debate me on whether or not they made and sold 87s, I'll do that. I would argue that they did make 1987 ATC 250Rs, but I don't think they ever made it to the public. I've never seen a picture of one. I've never, that's something that if somebody had one, they'd want to be the guy that, they'd want the accolades for that. Since those pictures of an 87 250R out in circulation have never surfaced, I don't believe they ever made it to the hands of the public. But this is the year that started the liquid cooleds. This machine came from Texas. A buddy of mine, Chris, sold this to me. I've got a little bit nicer seat that I got to put on it. This has the infamous tire marks. It's hard to see it in the sun, in the shade. Maybe right there you can see it. Right there where the tires came on, sitting on the seat in the crate. And sometimes the oils from the tires stain the seat. These are OEM rear fenders that are shiny. Normally you don't see OEM 85 rear fenders. You see replacement fenders, the double embossed, but those stickers aren't original. It's got a gouge there. It's got some stuff going on, but they're crack free. The color's bright. They're smooth. I believe they were restored. I believe Michael DiNardo did the work on this. There's a couple things I'd like to perfect on it. I had one that I sold to a buddy that I wish I had him at the same time, because some things off his bike would have ended up on this one, but sometimes it doesn't work out that way. Moving on. Here at the end, not because it's the fastest, but because it's got the biggest displacement, is the ATC 350X, the first year of the ATC 350X. I prefer the white plastic of the 86. Not to mention they're sentimental to me, but the 85 is where it all started. My rider is an 85. These are 4-stroke. The only 2-stroke in the bunch is the 250, so depending on what knowledge level you're starting with, you might not know that the 250R is a 2-stroke. The rest of these are 4-stroke. What else do I have to tell you? So, single cylinder, don't let the dual exhaust pipes fool you. There's 2 exhaust ports. 4-valve motor, in other words. This machine was restored by the same individual that I mentioned over here that did the Big Red, Pat Farnham, great guy. This has a lot of things going for it, but let me point out the incorrect things. See those rear rims? Those are not OEM 350X rims. Those are probably a 250X or 250EX rear rim. Someday I will make that right, but you'll notice that these are practically new old stock tires. Some of the tits in the middle have been worn off, but very, very nice condition. He stripped this all down, didn't paint the frame, but waxed it, polished it. The front tire is new old stock. I believe he painted the tank. This is a very nice restoration. This is actually 86. So I do have a nice condition 85 that I will put on it. The 85 would look like this. The axle has been cleaned up. I don't think it's been replated, but I think he did clear it to keep it nice condition. This actually I rode for the first time last night. You ever buy a machine like a 250R and then just put it in the barn and never ride it? I do. ridden that 250SX quite a bit. We'll just go, see, so that doesn't have a hitch on it. Hitches were an accessory. Big Reds came with tow hitches standard. This had a tow hitch standard. Can't wait to do a comparison video on that with the other Big Reds. That's coming, so we'll cover all the differences. I'm going to revisit my Big Red video. So if you've seen the old one, great. Get ready for the new one. You know, I'll probably put the 200M in there just for good measure. Look at what it did to my blacktop, you jerk. Lance, the 200X. This is a really clean machine. It's funny, it was detailed, but they didn't pull the tank, so as soon as I pulled the tank, you could realize how far they could reach with the tank on it and where they had to stop. But 11 machines made up the 1985 ATC lineup. Let me turn this around. So I'm not trying to make this a deep dive into each machine. Just wanted to kind of go over, because people don't know. What did they make in 1985? What did they make in 86? And all the rest. But as I'm going back in time, covering all the model years and what they made, this is just the next installment of that. So 11 machines, 10 of which were available in the US. The one oddball 200ES was not. But let me know if I missed anything, if you have any questions, comments or things you want to say, details I got wrong. I always love when people point that out. I'm humble about it. I know I miss things and I don't know everything. Sometimes I get questions and I really don't know. My favorite comment is when people tell me they watch me right before bed, because my soothing voice helps them fall asleep. And if that's you, you're welcome. I'm glad I could be that person for you. But I think that's it for me. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. I've got all my Trike Fest videos coming up. I just got a bunch of editing to do on those. I've got the Big Red comparison video coming up. I'm kind of excited to do a 110 comparison, because that's, I think, the only model I haven't done yet. That and the 200Ms, the machines that I don't know why they exist. But that's all I got to say, guys. From my garage to yours, thanks for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, and we will catch you next time. Thanks.